Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Today I think I'm going to do a multi-project video like I usually do on Thursdays, and we just got a new kitten, so I'm going to do 3 pairs of different cat earrings. I enjoy making jewelry that represents animals and plants sometimes, so it's kind of fun to do that as well. I think these are going to be mostly pretty beginner to intermediate kind of level projects, so let's give them a try and see how it turns out. Before we get too far in, though, I wanted to thank some people. First off, my patrons over on Patreon are my core group of supporters. They are a marvelous group of people with a lot of artistic talent, and I really do appreciate their support and the community that they've built over there. The other group is my YouTube subscribers, and they are awesome as well. We just passed 21,900, I believe. That's truly amazing to me when I think of those numbers. And I don't know how to express my thanks for all of the kind comments and the nice contributions, like the Buy Me a Coffees and the Super Thanks and the people who buy my ebooks and my merch. That stuff all makes it possible for me to continue doing this, so thank you for that. I do appreciate that a lot. All right, well, let's get started on these 3 cat earring projects. This is one of my design idea sketchbooks that you can get on my merch store. The more recent models have different charts on the back. This particular one has a gauge to inches to millimeters chart, which I use pretty frequently. The feature that I like the best about them, though, are these little dot matrix kind of in the background. That allows me to keep things sort of more symmetrical than they would be if I didn't have something to kind of help guide me. But the other thing is, ever since I started the channel, I started keeping track of all my projects in these books, and it's really nice to be able to go back and see what I did and how I did it in the past and the materials I used. So I find them pretty useful. So I filled up about 4 of them since I started the channel, I think. Maybe 5, I don't know, I'll have to check. Alright, well, here's the different earring projects. These are all pretty simple, like I said, and I think they'll probably be within reach of beginners or early intermediates. And the first ones are just going to be very simple, kind of domed circles with a back on them, and we're just going to add some ears to them and a post. And that'll make just kind of a simple stylized cat face, sort of. Second one is going to be an oval made out of, I didn't write this down, I don't think, but 16 gauge square, and that's 1.3 millimeters. This is flattened 14 gauge square, which is the same as the tail down here. That's 1.6 millimeters. This is going to be made out of some, I think it's about a 10 gauge half round. And I'll have to look that up. I don't remember what millimeters that is. Let's see. 8 gauge is 3.25, so 10 gauge I'm guessing is somewhere around 2.5 or 2.75 or somewhere. I'll double check. These are going to, the eyes here and the feet are going to be made out of balls, and then on these feet I'm just going to kind of cut some notches in with my file, I think. See how that looks. I made a prototype of each one of these, and then I'll do the second one to show you how to make them. So, third one is going to be kind of a simple one. I've seen a lot of these sorts of ones in the past where they have a tail that moves separate from the piece, and I like those. And so I made one like this with just a silhouette. And that's made out of 22 gauge sheet. 18 gauge round ring here. There's going to be some 18 gauge wire making the little mechanism that it swings on behind the body. And then this is more of that flattened 14 gauge square. So 22 gauge sheet for everything on this one. So, except for the post on the back, of course. Posts and ear wires are always 20 gauge. That's kind of standard, which is 0.8 millimeters, I think. Alright, so let me fish out the prototypes and we'll take a look at them. Alright, here's the first one. I got a little excess solder on there I'll have to take off, but you'll notice there's a hole in the back of this, and that's because whenever you solder a hollow space, you want to leave a hole in it just to make sure you don't have any unexpected surprises. Like I said, these are just curved 22 gauge sheet that I cut into kind of little ear shapes, and I'll probably file them down a little bit more. I didn't get this one soldered completely there, so I thought these were a little bit big anyway, so the second one I'll make them a little smaller, and we'll do that. At the end, because this wire on the back is going to be sort of soft from being annealed by being soldered on there, we'll take it and we'll twist it like this to work harden it, and that'll make it nice and stiff, and we can cut it off to the appropriate length. This one, like I said, I haven't flattened the bottoms of these and then cut some notches for the feet, but it's supposed to look like little paws. So same thing on the ear wire here, or the post. And then here's this one. We'll get that all shined up. I thought about doing a texture on this one. I think it might look kind of cool with a texture. Or if you wanted to, you know, hand do like kind of a stippling in parts of it to give the cat a pattern in his fur, you know, a calico or something. But the mechanism on the back here is just a ring with going through half a ring like that, and it just hangs free like that, so it'll move. So, and then I put a 20 gauge ear wire on here, which we won't shape until after it's all polished. But we will start by doing this, and the disc size that I used, let's measure this and find out. This ended up slightly bigger than that one, but I was just kind of eyeballing it this time. 12 millimeters or so, and then we're just going to use the dapping block for it. So, and you see we're not doming it to the point where it's like a half of a sphere, just a little bit. So give it some three-dimensionality. And let's see. I cut, for the sake of speed, since we're doing 3 projects, cut out a little square with a hole in it out of 22 gauge. And before I solder these two together, I think what I'll do is I'm going to file the bottom of this a little flatter. A lot of people will put a piece of sandpaper taped to their workspace. You can do that if you want to. That looks pretty good. So I think let's do it this way. We can either pick a little solder onto the bottom side of the edge of this, or we could pre-melt some on here, or we could flip this over, flux it, and then place some pieces around it. There's many different ways you could do this. First time I just laid some solder next to it. So let's try a different method and see if it works better. It worked okay. So I'm going to pick solder it. If you're interested in learning about pick soldering, I have a pretty good video. I'll put a link to it up there. Pick up a little bit of solder on the end of your pick. Place it where you want it to go. It's kind of convenient sometimes. I'm just going to pre-melt a little solder on the edge of this thing. Let's see if we can't pick that up and put it in a nice spot over the top of this. Like that. next step is going to be just to cut this excess sheet off. You could probably get by with thinner sheet on the back if you wanted to. I'll just do a little bit of smoothing out of that edge so it all kind of flows together. So if you enjoy what you're seeing here and you get something out of the video, don't forget to hit the like button. That really helps to get my channel promoted. I do appreciate that. Okay, let's see. What did I do with those? Here's those other ears I made in advance. Like I said, I just cut those out of 22 gauge. And then I'm just going to kind of dome them a little bit. So we're going to want to solder these on. Kind of like that. So I think we'll use this softer pad. It's a fibrous kiln block, I believe, from Cool Tools. That looks pretty good. Let's cut a little bit more solder. If you haven't been to my channel before, I use hard silver sheet solder almost always. Yeah, I think I used a little to seal this ring closed. I used a little easy paste solder just so I didn't accidentally solder something together that I didn't want. Cool that off. It's always fun when you get a new kitten. Their energy is funny. I was just trying to make sure I had plenty of solder on there. Now I'm going to put a little 20 gauge post on. There's quite a bit more mass in this earring than there is in this little wire, so I'm heating mostly the earring. When I start to get in that range, I'll plop that down there. Get it to flow. That's an easy way to put ear wires on. Okay, so I'm going to let that pickle. And then we can start working on the second one, which is going to be like this one. Let's find that piece of 16 gauge I had sitting over here, a 16 gauge square. I have an oval bezel mandrel here, so I'm going to use that, or an oval jump ring mandrel, depending on who you talk to. Alright, well, let's solder that closed. Okay, now a bit of about 10 gauge half round, and so let's file this to a kind of a point. And then we can just kind of cut it off. Not like that. I'm going to file that end flat because my wire cutters don't, even though they're flush cut on one side, the jaws are slightly misaligned. There's one of the ears. Kind of like that. So let's solder those on real quick. Again, you wouldn't have to pick solder this. You could lay a little piece of solder on there if you wanted to. That's just kind of how I'm used to doing things. Alright. So I need to make a couple of balls for the feet. So we're going to find some scrap wire over here, hopefully. Okay, I think where I put those little feet there, it's going to be just a little bit, pretty much straight under the ears. So I'm going to cut a little piece out of this. I got one there. So we need to put the other one in there too. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. Okay, I need to make a couple of little tiny balls too for eyes. Close enough. Now we need to make a little squiggly tail, and this is that flattened 14 gauge. And so I want it to go the opposite direction that this tail goes, I think. This one curves like that. So we'll start going the other way. I guess it doesn't matter because we can just flip it over. And we'll think about it. I'm going to use my bail making pliers to do this. Let me get a little twisting going on when you do this because we're asking this to bend in a way it doesn't want to bend. So if you need to, you can correct it as you go. Just kind of flattening it back out again. Not perfect so far, but we're getting close. That's pretty close. So I'm just going to mark it where I'm going to cut it off so you kind of match pretty well. We just got to add an ear post on the back of this. And then I'll have to shape those little feet. I think we can use this soft pad for this again. Okay. Grab another piece of that 20 gauge wire. And this is one of those situations where the little wire has very little mass, but the other piece has quite a bit. So we spend most of the time heating the bigger piece to get it up to temperature. And towards the end we can do that. Alright. So I'm going to take this one, throw this one in the pickle for a minute. I think I want to flatten these out just a little bit on the bottom. I think I want a notch kind of over here, a notch kind of over here. Now I think I can use that as a guide to kind of like cut kind of a V notch in the bottom. So I think once it's all cleaned up, it'll look like little paws. So hopefully it will. So let's let those both pickle. Okay, for the third one, so I drew this out based on my drawing on a piece of 22 gauge sheet, which was right there. And then I used this one after I kind of filed it down to trace this, so I'd have it closer. And so we should be able to cut that out and do a little filing to get it just where we want it. You could use your saw on this one if you wanted to. I don't think I need to, honestly. So some of these I can just use the shears, some of these angles. Okay, I think I had some little rings around here that I made. Unless I pushed them out of the way and lost them. Okay, I kind of need to mark about where I want that tail thing to end, so since I got a half of a ring here, I'll mark the bottom point about right there. Cut one to be the loop at the top of the little tail, and we'll cut a half of one. To be the little half ring on the back. So you can do this in your miter vise jig if you have one of those. I'm not going to bother, I'm just going to kind of give it a quick. And I think what we can do then is just pick a little bit of solder on there and plop it down there after we flux it and make sure I have enough solder. So again, there's a disparity in mass, very small amount of mass in this little half ring. So I'm going to spend most of my time heating up the cap. And hopefully I have it pretty close to the center there. So I'm going to solder this with the open side of the ring sideways. That way I'll be able to keep it open so I can slip it over this, and then we'll use some easy solder on it. So, like I said, I'm just going to put a little bit of easy solder where these two come together. The idea that we don't want to reflow any of that solder that's already there. Alright, so let's just add an ear wire on there. 3/4 of an inch, 2 centimeters, somewhere in like that. Spread it open that way. Usually feed these on from the back. I'll get those cleaned up and pickled and polished, and I'll show you the final products on all three. You'll have to tell me which one you like best, if any of them. Alright, well those were kind of fun. Okay, I got everything kind of polished up. A couple of things I do when I'm doing ear wires, like I said, I twisted this for a while so it's stiffer from work hardening. And I usually kind of scribe a little bit of a groove right there with my to catch an ear nut, so it kind of catches up on it. And then I'll use a cup burr or a file to kind of file the end flat. But yeah, there's those two. I don't know if you can tell, but I used a diamond burr just to kind of rough up the inside of the ears to make them stand out a little bit. I think those are cute. Okay, here's number 2. Little kitty cats getting ready to pounce, looks like. The only criticism I'd have on this is you can't really tell there's the little grooves down here very much because they're so shiny. But I still like them, they're kind of cute. And then these are probably my favorites, just because they're kind of classic, with the tail hanging down separately. I think those are fun. So tell me which one you like the best, and if any, and tell me about what you like to make. You know, I like to hear that too. So, one last thing, if you want to see how I finish up these ear wires, I have a good video about how to make different kinds of closures for earrings. So check that one out if you're interested. Okay, well that was 3 cat earring projects. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you go. And I would love it if you'd head over to my main channel page. I've recently added some organizational features to it. Specifically, what I did was on the main page I put a playlist that includes all of my videos chronologically now that we've hit 500. And that's, I still can't believe I have 500 videos. But that should make it easier to find some of my older videos if you're interested in seeing some stuff from a while back. Bear in mind, some of my early videos, the sound quality wasn't the greatest because I hadn't quite figured that out, and so I apologize in advance for that. But check some of those out, and I'd love it if you'd subscribe to my channel. The other thing is, check out my video description down below. There's some links there that are important. There's a link to my Patreon if you want to find out more about that community over there. There's a link to my merch store where you can get those nice design idea sketchbooks that I find pretty invaluable. And there's even a link to buy my ebooks if you want to check that out. They're guides to all of the tutorials I did for each of the years in 2023 and 2024. And each one has about 170 some pages that provides you additional information about each of the tutorials for that year, including a materials list, difficulty rating, things that I learned from the project or things that I might do different, as well as a link right to the video. So a lot of useful information, a great way to have a bunch of projects at your fingertips, and a really nice way to support my channel. If you do buy one or both of those, I really appreciate it, and thank you in advance for that. All right, well, thanks for watching today. Take care. Happy silversmithing.